Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about Manhattan Project, the essential questions, who was Oppenheimer, and what was his famous quote? What is so significant about the Yalta Conference in 1945? That's going to be important for you to know also for the final exam and for basically what's setting up the Cold War. Okay, so Manhattan Project. It says in August 1939, President Roosevelt is going to write a letter to Albert Einstein. So we're going back in time a little bit to pick up on how the atomic bomb comes to be. Okay, so at this point, of course, Roosevelt was still living, and he's going to write to Einstein, and they're going to have in writing a discussion about a new weapon. Einstein's reply is going to suggest that the Germans are looking into the science behind perfecting a new type of weapon, a more powerful explosive bomb that they could use during the war against the Allies. So you need to make sure you include that on your sheet. Roosevelt is determined that we will develop this technology, this weapon, before the Axis powers can. And he felt like that was crucial in winning the war. So he's going to organize a top secret project with a group of men to develop this atomic weapon. And they're going to call it the Manhattan Project. And through this will be the development of the atomic bomb. Now, just as a side note, the atomic bomb is going to be massive in its destruction and what it can do, and the fallout is going to be massive. And I'll get into that more later. But this pales in comparison to what we have today, which is a nuclear bomb. So, sometimes there are people who make comments about dropping bombs on other countries, nuclear weapons, and that kind of thing, and they really don't know what they speak of because this technology here is so terrifying that we cannot imagine the effects of nuclear war on the world. Okay, and my job is to teach you to respect the technology and to not use that type of language or talk lightly. Okay, so I'm going to show the effects that it had. So on July 16, 1945, the Manhattan Project scientists are going to field test the world's first atomic bomb, and they're going to do this in the desert of New Mexico. Thinking, for miles and miles and miles, there was really no habitation. So they thought that would be the perfect place to develop this weapon, sort of in secret, so to speak, and also without too much threat to our own citizenry. So they're going to test the first bomb, and it shattered windows 125 miles away. And that is sort of how they knew that they had stumbled upon a massive weapon. Again, keep in mind what we have today. This pales in comparison to what we can do today. The chief scientist there, his name is J. Robert Oppenheimer, and he's going to be quoted as saying, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." How right he was. This sets off an arms race right here between us, and as we enter the Cold War in about a week, between us and the Soviet Union. And we will come to brinkmanship, to the brink of nuclear war several times in American history during the 60s and later in the 80s. So all of it because of this development of this bomb to end World War II. It's important that you understand cause and effect. It's important you understand that there are many effects to the development of this bomb. Ending World War II is honestly a small step in the effects that this bomb is going to have on the entire world. I want to show you a picture of Oppenheimer. Okay, here he is. This is a scientist, a brilliant man. Science and math go hand in hand, and he was well known in both fields. Okay, so after FDR passes away, Truman, takes over as president, and he's very decisive that now that we have this technology, we're going to use it to end this war. And for the rest of his life, he will claim that he never lost a minute's sleep over the decision to drop the bomb on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And he'll also argue that the sole reason he used the weapon was to save American lives. In other words, to end the war so that we no longer have American soldiers dying in Japan and in the Pacific. Okay, remember that. Okay, so he's decisive in dropping the bomb on Japan. August 6th of 45, the U.S. plane, the Enola Gay, that's the name of the plane, drops a single atomic bomb on Hiroshima. And this is the site of a large military base there in Japan. And drops the bomb and 80,000 people die. After 9/11, which I know you were very young, I was in my 20s and teaching, and roughly 3,000 people died that day. And that was massive to us, massive. And, in no way do I want to diminish any of that. But I can't describe to you how massive it was that many people passed away that day because of that horrible terrorist attack on our country. 80,000 people died on August 6th in Japan. I don't think we can wrap our brain around that. I'll show you some pictures. When I was in college, a student of history, one of my professors told us that when the bomb was dropped, that there was so much radiation that people miles away, it flashed and their shadows were projected on the ground, burned into the ground, burned into buildings if they were outside. So much fallout radiation. And those at ground zero or in that surrounding area at Hiroshima, literally, she said, the science today tells us they literally evaporated. So Enola Gay. Here's the Enola Gay. There's the plane and several of the pilots and crew. Okay. I haven't gotten to Nagasaki yet. Let me just tell you, 3 days later, a second bomb is going to be dropped on Nagasaki. So here's Nagasaki after the bomb was dropped. Very, very little left. This is a picture of the mushroom cloud over Hiroshima. And so all this fallout, we call it, is going to fall back down and expose most of the people of Japan, expose them with this radiation. Okay, and I want you to see a victim. Pretty much not recognizable. Okay, very common. The flash and the burn from the weapon was deadly. Okay, it disfigured a lot of people who were able to survive it. Okay, so the point is, we don't take this lightly. The use of that technology, we shouldn't take lightly. Truman didn't take it lightly, and no president since him takes it lightly. Just a massive amount of death and destruction it can bring. So it says on August 14th, 1945, Japan surrenders to the Allies, and that's exactly the effect that Truman wanted. And certainly we celebrate VJ Day, Victory in Japan, through that. So no, we celebrate no more American GIs are going to die at the hands of the Japanese, who could be unmerciful in their torture of American GIs. So this was a great day to have them surrender and the war finally be over. Okay, at Yalta. So now the decision is going to be, what do we do now with Germany? And again, they're going to be the ones targeted as number one to bring down. Just like after World War I, they were the aggressors that started this whole thing. So what are we going to do? Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin are going to meet in this Soviet city of Yalta in February 1945. And there they're going to plan the final defeat of Germany. Meaning, what are we going to do now to totally make sure this is not going to happen again? They divide Germany into zones. This is huge, okay? You have to understand that what I'm teaching you here is going to last us through about 30 more years of the course. So understand, remember y'all, I think of the Y, this is silly, but I think, see, the Y obviously has 3 segments to it. And I think about that they divided Germany. It's as if the Y is Germany is divided up into pieces. Okay, and so literally they're going to divide Berlin. Okay, but in a sense, Germany. The Soviets will monitor Berlin. Stalin is going to use his power there to pretty much try to dominate Eastern Europe and that part of the world, including to take over Berlin eventually, and that leads us into the Cold War. Okay, actually the French take part of Germany, we, the Americans, take part of Germany, and Soviet Union takes part of Germany. The French are eventually going to kind of bow out of that, and it's just going to be us and Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union wants more and more. All right, so it says the United Nations was formed in 1944, and every nation of the world would have a vote. 5 countries would be permanent members of the Security Council, which means they have veto power, and do to this very day have veto power. And it all came from World War II. So these groups, Britain, France, China, USSR, and the US. Notice Germany is not here, and Japan is not here. So these are the powers that fought against the Axis at some level or another. Okay, I have a very famous picture I need to show you. Very famous. It's really cool that we have it in color. All right, so here's Churchill, FDR, and Stalin. So this discussion actually comes about before the death of FDR, obviously. And the thinking was here, so it happens shortly before Germany falls, but they knew it was going to happen. And the idea was, what do we do with Germany? I wanted to show you they're all sitting because out of respect for FDR, as he could not stand. So very, very famous photo. And here precludes the Cold War, where Stalin and FDR representing America and the USSR would go head to head for years to come. Okay. The Nuremberg trials is the last thing. 22 leaders of Nazi Germany are going to be prosecuted. 3 are acquitted, 7 given prison sentences, and 12 sentenced to death. I think that is extremely low. And considering what we know now, here's a picture from the Nuremberg trials of the Nazis' SS put on trial. What we know now pales in comparison to how many SS were involved in the final solution, and yet how many were not punished. All right, so let's go back to your essential questions. Who was Oppenheimer? So he's an American scientist. He's going to be chief scientist in the development of the atomic weapon in the Manhattan Project. His famous quote, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds." Why is it so significant? What's so significant about Yalta Conference in 1945? This is just before FDR passes away. It's the last time you see Britain and the United States sitting at the table with Soviet Union as allies. After this, we move into the Cold War. Stalin gets more greedy with wanting more of Germany and Berlin. FDR dies, Truman takes over, and we're ushered into the Cold War. Okay? All right, I believe that's it. See you guys tomorrow.